Since the MDGs were set, we have seen substantial progress in some parts of the world, above all in East and Southeast Asia. The trend is different in sub-Saharan Africa. The trend is heading in the other direction. The world's poorest are getting poorer. In Asia, success in poverty reduction is closely linked with the increase in food production and food supply. Asia's so-called Green Revolution promoted rural development, helped to create jobs, and advance the development of the poor. The World Bank's latest report states that, and I quote, agricultural growth does 4 times more for the incomes of the extreme poor than growth in other sectors. And yet, in many developing countries, this sector has been ignored. And I'm happy to see the new interest in rural development and in agriculture, including with the return of the World Bank to agricultural development. Similar increases in food production in Latin America has also helped improve the conditions in the rural poor. But the Green Revolution in Africa is yet to replicate these gains in other regions. The Malawians have a saying, and it goes something like this: hunger is a beast. Hunger is a beast. An estimated 200 million people in Africa, 1/3 of the continent's population, wrestle daily with that beast. They wrestle with it when the rains fail and the crops wither in the fields. They wrestle with it when shipment of food aid is riddled with weevils or doesn't arrive at all. And when depleted soils yield pitiful crops. Every day, African farmers work against the odds, as poverty and hunger also deprive them of help, and competition of scarce resources heightens risks of violence and instability. Africa is the only region where per capita food production has declined for the past 3 decades. It has declined because of the population growth rate of 3% a year has outstripped the meager 2% annual increases in food production. Cereal yields in Africa are 1/4 the world's average. Compounding the situation has been the high demand for grains, increased investments in biofuels, and rapid rise in world food prices. I think one of our challenges today is feeding the majority of the poor and vulnerable populations in Africa and moving beyond subsistence to prosperity while preserving the natural resource base and the environment. This is one of the most pressing development challenges I believe we face in this century. To meet this challenge, we must work with the continent's smallholder farmers to rapidly and sustainably increase food production. To bring this about, the changes we need for a uniquely African revolution are clear. More so than in Asia, Africa has great diversity. Excuse me. More so than Asia, Africa has great diversity of ecological zones and cropping systems. Our crops are many compared to the wheat and rice in Asia that dominate the Asian system. Africa needs improved varieties of our indigenous staple foods, crops that are better able to resist drought, pest, and disease. Another difference is irrigation. In Africa, farming is largely done under rain condition. It's rain-fed. Less than 5% of cultivated land in Africa is irrigated compared to 40% in Asia. We need to scale up wise water resource management and reduce the continent's dependence on an increasingly erratic rainfall. Africa must also revitalize its soils. Continuous farming without replenishing nutrients taken up with each crop has left Africa's soils the most depleted in the world. Restoring soils will ease the pressure to cultivate new lands and help preserve Africa's forest. These changes can only be realized if supported by bold pro-poor policies, both from the African governments and its international partners. Malawi demonstrates what can be done. Malawi, one of the poorest countries in the world, undertook a number of reforms and programs led by President Mutharika over the past 2 years and have transformed the country from a net importer to net exporter of maize. And this was done over a 2-year period. And the neighbors have taken notice. Policies included market reforms, the building of new roads, and government-financed smart subsidies, enabling many of the country's poorest farmers to purchase needed farm supplies for the first time. And yet, for Africa to succeed, we need more than this. In particular, we need equitable global trade regimes and progress in negotiations to expand markets for African farmers. Striving for a green revolution in Africa is particularly important and urgent given the continent's disproportionate exposure to climate change and climate risk. Africa's green revolution will also be a key component in its adaptation efforts. Indeed, it will be a crucial weapon on many fronts, ending hunger, reducing poverty, promoting sustainable development, and tackling climate change. My dear friends, too often people speak as if there were some sort of a clash between national and international interests, national and global interests. That is a misconception. Often the national interest is the global interest. In an era of interdependence, problems like disease, environmental degradation, and political unrest cannot be neatly contained within national borders. Climate change is already the cause of suffering in certain regions of the world. But as global temperatures rise, the effects will be felt by all of us. If some of us are poor, we are all the poorer. If some countries are unstable, we are all less secure. Similarly, we know that solutions to these problems will only come if we work together and pool our efforts to tackle them across borders, across boundaries of race, religion, language, and culture. The often cited $50 billion a year price tag for the adaptation needs of the world's vulnerable groups can be seen as a huge cost, but also a huge opportunity. And adaptation measures can be the platform for enterprises to grow. It can create jobs and promote development. Some experts estimate that the climate proofing and greening of the world's infrastructure is set to become $1 trillion industry through insurance, construction, and other activities. But timing is crucial.